What's up guys, and welcome to the 2016 Lexus GSF. I've never driven one of these before, but I have driven basically every other Lexus F product. The RCF, ISF, the IS500 F Sport, the LC500. This is pretty much the last one. Well, this and the LFA. Hopefully someday. But this is a car that I've personally been interested in for a long time. Because as much as I like the ISF and IS500, I always found them to be a bit too small, a bit too cramped. The GS obviously is more of a mid-size sedan, whereas the IS is a compact sedan. The idea of a high-revving, naturally aspirated V8 in a very reliable, luxurious, comfortable package is just very enticing to me. So today I'm going to drive this car and see if maybe I have one in my future someday. Now the owner David mentioned he only added a few mods to this one. We've got full Tom's chassis bracing, which includes a strut tower bar. There's a midsection, axles, and trunk bars. We have a Joe Z catback exhaust, LEMS carbon intake, Figs lower control arm polyurethane bushings, and an RR Racing air oil separator. It's powered by the almost legendary at this point 5-liter naturally aspirated V8 found in all of the other F products. In this car, it makes 467 horsepower at 7,100 RPM, and peak torque is 389 pound-feet at 4,800. That's a very high RPM for a V8 to be making peak torque. And as we get driving here, you'll see just how little low-end torque this engine really has, especially considering this car weighs a whopping 4,100 pounds. We have an adjustable torque vectoring LSD. There's a TVD button down here that lets us switch between slalom and track modes. We have double wishbone front suspension, multi-link rear, and we have fixed Sachs dampers, no adaptive dampers on this car. Market value for a GSF nowadays is somewhere between $45,000 to $65,000. A 2016 like this one obviously will be closer to $45,000. These cars were only sold from 2016 to 2020 because the Lexus GS wasn't selling that well towards the end of its run, and Lexus decided to consolidate the mid-size segment with the Lexus ES. That's a bummer because I've always been a big fan of this rear drive based GS platform. So with that out of the way, let's see how this GSF drives. Is it really a sports sedan, or is it just a comfy, plush Lexus with an exciting V8 engine? Very nice interior. The owner David mentioned that a lot of the carbon bits on the exterior are made in the same factory that made the LFA carbon bits. So that rear trunk spoiler, that tiny little thing, $4,000 to replace. 8-speed torque converter auto is the only choice of transmission in this car. Oh, that sound. Redline appears to be 7,300 RPM, and with this Joe Z catback exhaust, I'm sure this car sounds great from outside as well, although from inside, because there is so much sound editing, I can't really tell that this has an aftermarket exhaust. The downshifts from this 8-speed auto are really nice and snappy. The upshifts, when you're full throttle, shifting at redline, reasonably quick, but there is a delay. It's not nearly as impressive as the LC500's transmission. Also, you do feel a little kick every time you upshift. It's not super smooth like a modern PDK. One word comes to mind as I'm bombing through these corners, and that is refined. This car feels like it's just built so well. No squeaks and rattles even going over the bumps. Hardly any wind noise, even at high speed. I'm sure the audio in this video is going to be super crisp. You know what? This suspension is just right for this type of car. No one's taking a GSF to set lap records at the local racetrack. This is a daily driver that happens to have a very exciting engine. And so you might do the occasional canyon run like we're doing right now. And when you do, the suspension is firm enough for this type of driving at 70%. An electric power steering rack, there's not much feedback, but the weighting is nice. The load up in the corner is decent, and there's good precision. There's very little slop on center. Now the thing with this engine is, because it only makes 467 horsepower and very little torque down low, it's actually a bit of an exercise in patience winding it all the way out. 4,100 pound car means the power to weight ratio cannot compare to something like a BMW M3, F80 or G80 generation. And obviously not even close to an M5, which is technically more along the lines of this car's competitor. As you can see here, I'm in third gear for so long before I get up to the red line. Super quick downshifts. Good brake feel, easy to modulate, not overly grabby, which I like. All the controls of this car, very natural. And when you just drive this car around normally, it just feels like a GS. Very quiet, supple, plush, luxurious, all the words you would use to describe a Lexus midsize sedan. But then you throw it into Sport Plus, manual mode, and this engine just comes to life. I love that dual personality. It's not the sharpest handling sedan in the world, but it doesn't need to be. This is a car you can depend on to run smoothly every single day. I love that it beeps at you when it's nearing the rev limiter. In fact, I just love this tachometer in general. It's so racy and LFA inspired. You can still reach some pretty crazy speeds in this car. I think it just takes you a little longer to get there compared to the other super sports sedans. And all the while, this car is just so comfortable. I have the ventilated seats going, not a single squeak or rattle. And this is an 8 to 9 year old car. The build quality is just so good. We also get a head-up display with a tach, which you don't see in every head-up display. Even my Integra Type S doesn't have that. No brake fade so far. Look at this. We'll throw it into drive, put it back into normal mode. There's actually an eco mode as well, although you shouldn't expect to get great miles per gallon from a naturally aspirated V8. The dual personality of this car, I absolutely love it. This is a car I could definitely see myself daily driving. Only issue is, even though this is the GS, the midsize sedan, the back seat still not that big. Obviously it's bigger than the IS, but the middle seat is essentially unusable by adults. There's not enough headroom. I'm 5'7" and I have to do this. So that's a little bit of a bummer. I wish Lexus found a way to make this back seat a little bit more usable. Honestly, that's really the only reason I would go for this over the IS 500, which is a newer car. But at $45,000 to $50,000 for a 2016 or 2017 model year, I still think this has so much appeal, especially because the owners of these cars likely are not beating the hell out of them. And even if they were, it's a Lexus. It's going to be more reliable than any of its European rivals. So big shout out to David. Let me know what you think of the Lexus GSF. Is it the best daily drivable midsize sports sedan you can buy for $50,000 or less? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.